Congress today, Congresswoman Maxine Waters. I can tell you I personally appreciate and admire some of the bold stances she's taken recently on some of today's really most compelling issues. I could probably talk all afternoon about her many, many accomplishments. Don't worry, I will not do that. I do want to go through some of her accomplishments in Congress and information about her background so you can gain the same appreciation I have for the work she's done and her determination in her office. Congresswoman Maxine Waters is considered by many to be one of the most powerful women in American politics today. She has gained a reputation as a fearless and outspoken advocate for women, children, people of color, and the poor. She was just elected in November 2016 to her 14th term in the U.S. House of Representatives in the 43rd Congressional District of California. She represents a large part of the South Central Los Angeles area, Westchester, Playa del Rey, and Watts, and the unincorporated areas of LA County comprised of Lenox, West Athens, West Carson, Harbor Gateway, and El Camino Village. Her district also includes the diverse cities of Gardena, Hawthorne, Inglewood, Lawndale, Lomita, and the great city of Torrance. An integral member of congressional Democratic leadership, Congresswoman Waters serves as a member of the Steering and Policy Committee. She is also a member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus and member and past chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. Prior to Congress, she served for 14 years in the California State Assembly, where she rose to the powerful position of Democratic Caucus Chair. She was responsible for some of the boldest legislation in California, including the largest divestment of state pension funds from South Africa, landmark affirmative action legislation, the nation's first statewide child abuse prevention training program, the prohibition of police strip searches for nonviolent misdemeanors, and the introduction of the nation's first plant closure law. As a national Democratic Party leader, Congresswoman Waters has been highly visible in Democratic Party politics and has served on the Democratic National Committee since 1980. She was a key leader in 5 presidential campaigns. In 2001, she was instrumental in the DNC's creation of the National Development and Voting Rights Institute and the appointment of Mayor Maynard Jackson as its chair. Following the Los Angeles civil unrest in 1992, Congresswoman Waters faced the nation's media and public to interpret the hopelessness and despair in cities across America. Over the years, she has brought many government officials and policymakers to her district to appeal for more resources. Following the unrest, she founded Community Build, the city's grassroots rebuilding project. She has used her skill to shape public policy and deliver the goods. $10 billion in Section 108 loan guarantees to cities for economic and infrastructure development, housing, and small business expansion. $50 million appropriation for Youth Fair Chance program, which established an intensive job and life skills training program for unskilled, unemployed youth, expanded U.S. debt for Africa and other developing nations, created a center for women's veterans, and I can tell you recently she also did remarkable work in ensuring a sustainable future for the Export-Import Bank, which I think is a very important cog in our local economy, given our proximity to foreign trade. Congresswoman Waters was the founding member and former chair of the Out of Iraq Congressional Caucus. Formed in June 2005, the Out of Iraq Congressional Caucus was established to bring into Congress an ongoing debate about the war in Iraq and the administration's justifications for the decision to go to war and to urge the return of U.S. service members and their families as soon as possible. Maxine Waters was born in St. Louis, Missouri. I spent some of my youth in St. Louis, Missouri as well. The 5th of 13 children reared by a single mother. She began working at age 13 in factories and segregated restaurants. After moving to Los Angeles, she worked in garment factories and at the telephone company. She attended Cal State LA. She earned a Bachelor of Arts degree and then began her public service as a teacher and a volunteer coordinator in the Head Start program. She's married to Sidney Williams, the former U.S. ambassador to the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. She's the mother of 2 children and 2 grandchildren. Maxine Waters.
I want to thank you, Jeffrey, for that very kind and lengthy introduction. Let me start by thanking Chairman Jonathan Butler, President and CEO Donna Duperon, and the entire Torrance Area Chamber of Commerce for the invitation to address you today. And before I go any further, let me just say to Donna, who's not in the room, where is she? There she is over there. I want to thank you for the friendship you have extended to me since I took this part of my district in the reapportionment. But I really want to thank you for the way that you worked with me to try and save the Ex-Im Bank and the work that the Chamber did here to help with that. Would you give Donna Duperon a big round of applause? Ladies and gentlemen, the roles that chambers of commerce play throughout the country are essential, and I have a great appreciation for all of the chambers in our region. I would also like to recognize my friend and colleague, Congressman Ted Lieu, and I want to say to him, thank you for scaring us half to death. He is so knowledgeable about cybersecurity, and we're all going to have to learn more about how we protect ourselves. I know that I say to many of my friends and relatives, we have no more privacy, but we cannot conclude that. We have to conclude that we must take every step possible to have privacy. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story, and I'm going to tell it to you really quick. I was on the floor of Congress a week ago, and I was on the floor because there was a bill that had been put on the floor by Chairman Henselin. I'm the ranking member of the Financial Services Committee, and he's the chair. And they had a bill on the floor. It was about benefit analysis. And basically, that is used by those who are opposed to the SEC and all of the tough work that they have to do to protect investors. So they try to stop them. They try to make it very hard for them to do their job, even though they're our cop on the block. And so I was opposing the benefit analysis bill, and I was talking about Russia, and I was talking a little bit about our president-elect, and I was hacked on the floor of the Congress of the United States. RT came on, the Russian television, and blocked me out and stayed up for 10 minutes. And of course, we started getting all of these calls, and my staff was going wild, and we called C-SPAN because C-SPAN is responsible for our coverage on the floor. They didn't know what had happened. They tried to find out if it was a malfunction of some kind, et cetera. And even today, we don't know what happened. That RT could literally interrupt a speech on the floor of Congress and stay up for 10 minutes. And so, if you're worried about your telephone, worry about everything, because I want you to know we're being hacked, not only on our telephones, but we just experienced it on the floor of Congress. And so it's kind of scary. And I was just told by Jonathan, and asked rather, did I plan on going to Moscow anytime soon? And I didn't have time to tell him, I don't really think so. But anyhow, I thought I'd share that with you since we had gotten such a wonderful lesson from Ted about cybersecurity. Thank you, Ted. Give him another round of applause. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I don't have to tell you that there's a lot going on in Washington right now. And it's kind of hard to know where to start, but I, like Ted, decided that I was going to focus my remarks in 3 areas. And so you're going to hear more about the ACA and about Obamacare, as it is commonly known, than you're going to want to know about. I'm going to talk about it toward the end of my presentation, but for the next few months, you're going to be hearing all about the ACA and healthcare. It is a huge issue as we determine where this country is going with healthcare. So let me start with housing. The 2008 housing crisis took a painful toll. No, I'm not going to start there. Ted, you got me in trouble. I got to introduce my husband, Ambassador Sidney Williams. I didn't want to leave here and have him say, well, Ted introduced his wife. Why didn't you introduce me? And so let me just go back. The 2008 housing crisis took a painful toll on American families, causing significant and long-term shifts in the housing market as families continue to increasingly delay homeownership and rely on rental housing. But construction of new rental housing, particularly affordable rental housing, is nowhere close to keeping up with the demand, which is driving the cost of renting up. This competition is particularly harmful for low and moderate households, income households, who rely disproportionately on rental housing. Meanwhile, home prices are slowly picking up, which is a sign of our economic recovery, but with the cost of a down payment for a home increasingly and rental costs eating up a larger share of family budgets, it is becoming harder and harder for families to save enough for a down payment. The impacts of these housing challenges nationwide are felt even more acutely here in the greater Los Angeles area. For example, the vacancy rates across the country are very low, illustrating tight housing markets, but they are disproportionately low throughout our entire region. In Torrance, we have a 1.2% home ownership vacancy rate and a 3.1 rental vacancy rate. Palos Verdes home ownership vacancy rate is 0.9% and rental vacancy rate of 1.3. In Redondo Beach, home ownership vacancy rate is 2.2 and rental vacancy rate of 2.9. Manhattan Beach, home ownership vacancy rate of 0.3 and rental vacancy rate of 4.1. In Inglewood, home ownership vacancy rate 0.5 and rental vacancy rate of 1.0. In Hawthorne, home ownership vacancy rate of 0 and rental vacancy rate of 3.1. These statistics highlight the lack of inventory available for renters as well as aspiring homeowners. Evelyn Arnold is in the room, who is one of the leaders in real estate, and she knows exactly what I'm talking about, and she's in Washington very often, walking the halls with her colleagues to get us to deal with some of the ways that we could help people get into home ownership, et cetera, et cetera. As a result of a tight rental market, we're seeing an increasing gap between wages and the cost of renting across our country. But in the greater Los Angeles area, we have the biggest gap of all major areas, meaning that renting in Los Angeles area is becoming more and more unaffordable for the average income household. Nationwide, 49% of renter households are housing cost burdened, meaning that they pay over 30% of their income on rent. In Torrance, 55% of renters are cost burdened. In Palos Verdes, 58% of renters are cost burdened. And in Hawthorne and Inglewood, 65% of renter households are cost burdened. Home ownership is increasingly out of reach in the greater Los Angeles area as our housing market continues to recover from the housing crisis. While the median home value in U.S. is $296,400. The median home value in Torrance is a whooping $713,000. Palos Verdes, 968,200. Redondo Beach, 736,100. Manhattan Beach, 1,400,000. Hawthorne, 465,700. And Inglewood, 385,900. This means